Hey, it's Doug here, and I'm popping in before the episode I guess there's some announcements, but this is really Doug's story time. And I do appreciate the folks that say that they do enjoy the story time. If you don't, then of course you could skip ahead. And this is one of those bonus episodes, so technically it's shorter. It's shorter, but the thing is, they are longer than I intend. However, this one's a little, indeed shorter, tighter topic, and as long as I make this short, we should be okay. So, we're talking about reading and books and that sort of thing. Again, bonus episode, and no sponsor in these episodes so far. If you want a sponsor, you can shoot me an email. However, you do have the opportunity, if you want, to support via Buy Me a Coffee. I'll put a link if you want to check it out. You get some episodes early, like this one. You'll probably get it at least a few days, maybe even up to a week early, maybe longer, depending on how on top of things I am. But you can help support the show. I mean, ideally, I would have like one more sponsor. So if there's a product that you like, or you work for a company that has the ability to sponsor, it is helpful. So anyway, with that said, the other thing that I'm doing is, because these are, I'm the only person making decisions here. So essentially, I was like, you know what? Let's just cut out the fucking intro music. And then I started adding stuff back in, and I played us in. I'm actually holding a guitar. For the people that are only listening, I'm holding a guitar. I got a new one, which is actually a very old 1933 Kalamazoo KG11. Super cool guitar. A whole other story behind it. I think I probably mentioned it in a previous episode, but I can't remember what I said. Some other time I'll give you more details, but I will play a little bit more in between the main episode and the sound check. Again, if you don't want to listen to it, totally fine. I'm a hobbyist, so I'm barely getting by, but pretty fun, and I wanted to play it a little bit more. So anyway, guitar is super cool, having fun playing it. It probably needs a tiny bit of work, but I don't think anything super major. So it does play pretty well. Some of the normal things that you would have to do, it looks like it has either not had that done because it's either not been played much or not been abused too much. So anyway, the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and a lot of people actually did email and or talk to me in person when I have seen them. This is the Lazy Book. So a lot of positive feedback to me to work on the Lazy Book. Shout out to Carl Jensen, who, he wrote half the draft, and basically I was like, hey, can I finish it up and maybe we could work on it together, but I'll get it into a better spot and work on it more. He was like, sure. Whenever he can get other people to do work for him, that's what he does. No, I'm just kidding. But Carl was like, have my blessing. That's cool. I'll revisit it in 2028 or whenever I have free time again. So anyway, I was like, all right, I'm going to get started on this. Of course, it's well over a month. I haven't done anything. So that's the thing about writing a book about laziness. One thing that I know when first order of business, to put it all together. So I think my stuff is in a handful of files. Carl's is in a couple of files. So I just need to put it all together in whatever state it's in, and then kind of look at where it's at. So I know for a fact that I'll probably want to rewrite most or all of mine. Maybe I'll read it and think, you know what, I think I could do better if I just start from scratch and go from there. But one thing I really have in mind now that I didn't when I wrote the draft, 2 years ago at this point, I think I put things that were more in the moment and timely. And I want to take that stuff out. So it's like either the core idea behind it and make it a little more like evergreen and timeless. So that's something that I'm thinking about. So in 100 years, when people get that book out, they're going to think, wow, they knew what they were talking about back then. Of course, that's a huge joke. I hope in like 2 years, you'll be able to get the book out and think, hey, it's not dated in 2020. So that's one thing that I thought about. I really need to clean that part up. So anyway, I think I'll get started on it here pretty soon. The perpetual, I'm going to start on it next week thing is going on, but I really think next week is the week that I'm going to get into it. So again, thanks for all the feedback and positive encouragement to work on the book. And in all seriousness, we had a lot of travel in Q1 and things are kind of slowing down just a little bit. Now, the weather is getting nicer, so definitely a risk of me doing things outside. But I could spend a couple hours in the mornings or whatever and try to get this book into shape. I think one of the last order of business here is... This is actually big. I'll probably record a whole other little short video and stuff to make sure it gets out there. So CampFI, Rocky Mountain, apparently super popular. All right. So when I was there during week 1 last year, I think Stephen, the founder, sent out an email and was like, hey, tickets are going to be out. These are hot. They're really hot. And I bought one, a few other friends bought theirs, and it was sold out so quickly. So basically, week 1 sold out. I think week 2 sold out. This happens in July, by the way. So week 2 sold out. And then week 3 apparently sold out. In fact, I talked to Steven and I was like, hey man, I was thinking about maybe going to week 3. What do you think? He's like, well, it's sold out, my friend. So I was like, okay, let's rethink this. And I got a point here, by the way. So I'm going to give away my ticket. I have a ticket to week 1, apparently the most sought after week. But for me, I was torn. I was like, do I want to go to week 1 next year? The novelty is a little bit gone because I've been to week 1 for the last 3 or 4 years in a row. So it's a lot of the same people, which is great. I have lots of friends, but I was like, I'm going again, a lot of the same people. Am I going to get as much out of it? Am I going to meet as many new people? And it occurred to me like novelty is a big piece of this for me. And a lot of the novelty is like the vibe of the folks there, including new people. Now, while I'm a little shy sometimes and I don't talk too much, meeting new people, that's pretty cool. And the other part, maybe more important, is I knew while I would enjoy week 1 and seeing my friends and like someone else would enjoy it way more than me. So that I was like, I should give it away. Now, I'm a marketer though. So I was thinking, why don't I do a contest? And there's great software out there to help run a contest. So that's what I'm going to do. We're doing a contest. I will give away the ticket. I double checked with Steven. He was like, that's cool. It's good to go. I support what you're doing. Initially, I was going to try to go to week 3. It sold out. But the thing is, it's so damn popular. Steven added what he's calling week 1.5, which happens during the week, in between week 1 and week 2. So 1.5, I'm going to go to that one. I need to talk to Steven. I'll ping him. I think I might speak at 1.5. So we'll see how that goes. That's yet to be determined. Perhaps by the time this episode comes out, it'll be determined and I'll add it in the notes and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, there's going to be a contest. By the page isn't out, but basically it's one of those deals. You put in your email address, you are added to the email list. And I mean, the thing I'm trying to do, I want more people to listen to the show. All right. So I don't do a ton of guest appearances, which I should probably do more of that stuff, but I want more people to listen to the show. So basically, if we can share this out. If you enter the contest, you already listen, which is great. But what should happen is, and the way these contests work, like you sign up and then you're like, you can get more entries if you do additional actions. It'll be all very clear on the page. And basically it's like, follow on Facebook or join as a subscriber or subscribe over on YouTube, leave a review. There's like a handful of actions. Some of it is like share it on your within your network on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. So part of it is like sharing. And then the other thing I'm going to do, because I know many people with like either Facebook groups or their own audiences, I'll let them know, hey, I'm doing this giveaway. I'm just giving away a ticket, and it's for week 1 in Rocky Mountain in July 2025. And I'll probably be able to share it to a bunch of different Facebook groups. And that way, more and more people will enter, and the show's not for everybody, but basically like at least they'll be exposed to it, and then they'll have the opportunity to check out the show if they want to. And yeah, so there will be a contest. Hopefully, you'll be able to enter. There'll be a link in the description for you to check it out in the show notes. The thing is, if you're watching this early, if you're one of the fine Buy Me a Coffee supporters, you'll see this early, which is totally fine. And the contest will probably not be set up by then, but it will be very soon. And I'll put the link in there and all that stuff. So that is it. Don't forget, I will be playing just probably like 30 seconds to 1 minute of the guitar in between the main content and the sound check at the end. So if you don't want to hear, you could fast forward. It should be just fairly chill. All right. You don't have to worry too much about it. All right, let's get to the show. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Mile High 5 podcast. I'm Doug Cunnington, and I'm hanging out with JT again. How's it going?
Oh, it's great. And I'm excited about what we're going to talk about because reading is one of my favorite hobbies.
You're such a nerd.
It's true.
But I've been like going back to my nerdy roots as well, and like really enjoying like reading. And one thing that I'm kind of doing is like I stopped reading nonfiction for a little while. Just took a little break, and I've made it a little bit of a goal to like run through this giant stack, not all of these, but like many of these books, and just like read the nonfiction that I am into. And currently I'm reading this Alton Brown book that just came out recently called, I forget the name.
Food for Thought, right? Food
for Thought, right. And Alton Brown is the Good Eats guy. Yeah. Big fan. He's from Georgia, so I had like a little connection with that too. But the reason why I wanted to record this episode is because you commented on the stack of books, and we have several Tim Ferriss books, and they're so fucking big. Like, can you just try to describe like how large the books are compared to others?
Yeah, I walked in and saw, a collection of normal sized books, and then these other books that were like the size of the calculus textbook I had when I was in college or something. And there's probably 750 pages in some of those books. Like they're quite large. And I wasn't sure, I'm familiar with a lot of Tim's ideas, but I haven't really read many of his books. So I was wondering, as you went through these books of his, do you tend to like just read them front to back? Or I know, a lot of these have different areas that they talk about. So will you pick, out of the table of contents, hey, I'm really interested in this, this topic. And so I'm going to really focus on that. As you flip through that, I do notice there's a lot of white space and the font is quite large. So maybe it's not as unapproachable as it looks looking at it from the spine. But yeah, my question still stands. It would take a lot of time to get through any one of these books. So how do you approach his stuff specifically, and then does that also carry over to other books that you read?
So for the 4-Hour Work Week, I did read it like front to back fairly quickly. Although I was late to the game on this one. So I got this in, I think, 2014. So it came out in 2007.
Yeah.
So I was several years behind. But everyone kept talking about it. So I did read that front to back. Same with, I think, 4 Hour Body and maybe 4 Hour Chef. Although those other two they're put together so that you can skip around a little bit more.
Right.
And then these others, so like Tools of Titans and Tribe of Mentors, these are more like compilations from his show. At the time that these came out, I listened to most of his episodes. And currently, I think maybe I catch like one a quarter, depending on what the host is or what the guest is. And to be fair, I think I've only flipped through Tools of Titans and Tribe of Mentors a little bit, and I haven't read them. And I'm not sure, like, how much I would get out. I'm not sure how much I would get out of them because they're little snapshots of like someone, and I feel like context is missing sometimes. Have you looked at these at all? By the way?
I haven't. The way you describe it, it seems like it's almost like some of Ryan Holiday's style, but just a lot longer.
Right. And I mean, it's not to say that these aren't valuable, but like, you can like flip it. And if I see like Pete Adney is in here, and I can go read his little section or whatever, that could be interesting. But at the same time, I think I got these to like support Tim because he's a starving artist now.
Sure.
He's not. But I was like, you know what? I'm into it. I'll buy the book and whatever. He has a new book coming out. I think maybe that's why I pulled these back out. Did you hear that he has a new book coming out?
No, I didn't know that.
He's teased it for a little while, and I think it's like How to Say No. And then he expanded it to 700 fucking pages or something.
Of course, yeah.
But I think he has mentioned like the original, like the first draft or manuscript or whatever is like super long. And I do wonder about that because like the other books that we have here in the pile, as you mentioned, they're shorter. They're like 150 pages with notes in the back or whatever. Yeah. And that is the stuff I'm currently trying to read. So how do you treat a nonfiction book?
Typically I'll read them just straight through because I'm an obsessive completionist, and just kind of want to get through them. There's a couple that I kind of gave up on. Like I think I'd started a couple of Robert Greene's books, that I got like part of the way through, and I was like, I just sort of trailed off on them. But oftentimes, if I'm interested enough to pick them up, I'll tend to kind of go all the way through them.
Funny enough, I have Mastery back there, and you hear great things about Robert Greene, and I haven't. I've had that book since it came out. I haven't read like one page.
So you mentioned you kind of took a break from nonfiction. I was wondering, like, was most of what you were reading in the nonfiction space sort of that productivity, personal development, kind of self-help? I mean, the authors that you and I always talk about when we, the Cal Newport and Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss and Charles Duhigg and kind of those things, or were you also reading, memoirs and biographies and some of those other ones as well?
Mostly the former.
Okay.
And I think that's what happened. I was just like, I'm not trying to be ultra productive. In fact, I'm trying to do the opposite. And, some of the authors like Cal Newport, he's like leaning in that other direction with like slow productivity, which that's one I'm going to read very soon. The thing is, I still knew that I wanted to read some of these books. So when they would come out, I would buy them. But like, I think it was basically like a 2.5 year like hiatus. But I was just like, I'm not trying to be productive. I'm a little sick of this. This is regurgitated. Like I would recognize the anecdotes from like book to book,
right.
And then you go back to the references and they're like just retelling something that has been retold like dozens of times already. And I'm like, this is dumb. I don't even care. And people, I won't mention the name of the author. I don't know him personally or anything, but like apparently his book came out this week. So I see his name on all the podcasts,
right.
And I'm just like, I hate it when people do that. And I will listen to one of those and I got the point and I don't need to read the book. So like, the fact that podcast tours are so effective for authors has like shot them in the foot. In some way, I'm probably weird in that way. So I have to really like the author to actually like buy the book. So what are your thoughts on that?
I find most of the books that I buy tend to be authors that, like you, like I want to support. Even though I'm sure, like Tim, Cal Newport is not exactly a starving author at this point in his career. Yeah. So those tend to be many of the books that I buy. I think, for the podcast piece, the podcasts that I listen to are disparate enough that I don't tend to see, the same person show up across like 12 different things that I listen to. They might show up on one or two, like Jordan, I heard him on your show and I heard him on Mindy's show as well. But that was just two. So that wasn't like super overwhelming.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting because I know like the publishers are telling the people, you got to be on a bunch of podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think like I did a couple of those for friends for this show. And I think I'm not going to interview people about their books anymore, unless it's like someone in the stack of books here.
Sure. If Charles Duhigg wanted to talk to you about his book, then you'd be okay with that? I
would be okay. And I actually have like I exchange emails with him. I have a little placard thing he signed. Like he's actually a good communicator overall. But the only authors, it would have to be someone who they shouldn't be on my show because they're too big. Right. Or if someone does have a book out and they're my friend, like we're not going to talk about your book because I hate the interview. We'll move this from a rant in a second, but basically I hate the interviews where the interviewer reads the title of the chapter. What do you mean by that? And I'm like, oh, this sucks. So I could be alone on that because a lot of accomplished podcasters do that, and I have no fucking idea why. It's dumb. Do you read much fiction?
I tend to go back and forth. I'll have periods where I'll read a lot of fiction and then periods where I'll read a lot of nonfiction. Most of my fiction, since high school, has been like science fiction and fantasy. You can take the look of surprise off your face. Like I know it's a big surprise to you. I've occasionally tried to get into some generally older like literary fiction, but it's always, I don't know, it's always been a bit of a challenge for me. I thought it was interesting, from like high school and college literature classes where you'd read, I don't know, like the Great Gatsby, and they'd ask, so that there was this billboard that was mentioned 3 times in the book. Like, what is the significance of the billboard? And there's one sense in which I think it's very interesting to think that, in this book that's been around for a long time, there's nothing there by accident. Not a single, especially by like a really good writer, there's nothing there accidentally. It's all there for a reason. And on the other hand, sometimes I just want to read a good, entertaining story, and I don't want to like think about what it means that they said the sky this day was blue-green instead of green-blue, and I don't know.
And I think that highlights why I didn't like reading or like English class. At that time, I was more of a typical engineer. I think I've broken away from that, those chains. But basically, like in English class, we could have studied anything and then like analyzed the writing, and it could have been a topic that we were interested in. But like one thing with English classes is they did have us study and write about literature, but we could have been writing about anything else. So I didn't even realize that. There's some book that I read, and that was kind of the thing. It was like, we all should like be able to communicate a little bit better about our trade or craft or whatever we're doing. And like, I just didn't learn how to write very well because it was like the blue-green, green-blue situation, which is pretty tough. Now, do you take notes when you're reading like nonfiction, the self-helpy kind of stuff? How do you take your notes?
Most of the time I don't. I have a weird relationship with a lot of those books. What I've found, especially recently, is as I'm reading them, I'm like, man, this is really interesting, inspiring stuff. And then I get to the end of it, I'm like, I don't really know like what to do with any of this now. So what was even going on here? And I don't entirely know what to do with that. A lot of these authors I follow in other contexts as well, and that certainly doesn't seem to be what they would like me to take away from their book. Of, you know, like here's a bunch of. There seems to be a style now of like, here's a string of anecdotes or stories about people, like these little vignettes, and then I'm going to put them together in a way that you should be able to take something from as the reader. But oftentimes they tend to be fairly light on like prescriptive suggestions on how to actually do any of this stuff. I think I like I think he's an excellent writer and an excellent researcher, but I find that a lot about, say, like Ryan Holiday's books, especially, where it's just this collection of stories about wisdom. And somehow out of that, I'm supposed to maybe either be inspired to live a wise life or like come up with an idea on how I might, improve my own wisdom. And the first seems pretty straightforward. The second one, I oftentimes get a little tripped up on.
I agree with you about Ryan. I want to like his writing more, but I got a couple on the Kindle, and I think I got started, and I was just like, I can't do this. I can't, like, I don't know. It just doesn't connect to me. However, Charles Duhigg, so I have his 3 books, really do like Charles. He has a little section at the end of the books where it's like 15 pages on like, here's how you implement all the shit we just talked about. And it's like distilled down and it can stand alone. So he did that also in Super Communicators, which, at the end of each section, it's just like, here's the takeaways. And not all books do that.
I have started using LLMs for book recommendations. And I'm wondering if that's something that you've taken a look at. I know you've looked into some of the AI stuff a bit more than I have. I wondered if that was an area that you kind of looked into.
Not for recommendations, but I haven't done too much of this recently or for any kind of production output or anything like that. But to be like, hey, we have Atomic Habits, Power of Habit, and 4-Hour Work Week. Like, what threads are in each one of those books, and how can you tie them together? Do they disagree in any area? And that's pretty cool, because then it does the critical stuff that we were talking about, and then like teases out the contradictions or whatever. So, good recommendations that you got?
I've gotten a couple of good recommendations. I've also had the LLM just absolutely hallucinate a book out of thin air. Where there was one, I'll spare you the incredibly nerdy prompt that I gave it to try to give me some books, and it gave me one that I thought was really interesting, and I went and looked for it, and it just did not exist.
What?
Not even. So I went back to the LLM. I was like, hey, look, I was looking for this book, and it doesn't exist. And I was like, oh.
You got to write that book, man.
Yeah, I guess.
Write the book.
I guess.
All right. So I think this is one of those episodes we're not really going to have a point. It's just us talking about reading. Now, I'll kind of wrap it up here and ask you a question, but I think I know the answer. So I'll read like one fiction book and I'll read one nonfiction book. And that's okay. I'm not going to get confused about what's going on. I think you're probably the same way, but I know some people will have multiple books that they're reading all at once, which seems overwhelming to me. But what's your approach?
It's inconsistent.
I'm surprised.
There are lots of times where I will read exactly and only one book at any given time. Right now is not one of those times, and I don't know why. I think I'm pretty actively reading one fiction book, and then I have 3 or 4 nonfiction books that I'm in some state of having read it, which does make me a little uncomfortable, but that's just where we are right now. And some of that they were things I was really interested in, and I'm still interested in, but I'd read them for a while and be like, oh man, there's this other thing that I'm also interested in, or another book showed up because I pre-ordered a lot of books last year, and they all like showed up at the beginning of the year. So now I'm real excited about them, and I'm like, I want to read this one right now. So my reading life at the moment is a bit of a mess, but hopefully as we go through the year, I can clean it up a bit.
Gotcha. And one thing you mentioned earlier, so I was reading a lot of the self-help stuff before, and that's why I took a break. But like, I probably will go. So this Alton Brown book it's essays. So I like his writing. Like the show's funny. He's a funny guy. So it's part humor, like part around food. There's other stuff in there as well. I just got it yesterday, so I'm enjoying it, but I probably will try to read more like biography, memoir kind of stuff to like sprinkle it in. Cause I mean, the fact is like you read self-help stuff all the time, and then you're like, I need to be implementing this. But the fact is like, the reason why I stopped reading a while back, these nonfiction books, I was like, if I just follow the instructions in like one of the books, I would be fine. Like I'm not trying to fix a bunch of shit. So, I mean, maybe I should be, but I'm not. So I think mixing it up a little bit and having the memoirs and a little humor, it's a little better than some of these that are like so fucking serious all the time. So all right, go ahead.
Before we're done,
yeah,
we've chatted for a while. You know, we've known each other for a few years now. What is one book that you think I probably would enjoy that you don't think I've read yet?
All right, we'll pause here. I have to think.
It doesn't have to be in that stack. But
have you read 4,000 Weeks?
I have read 4,000 Weeks.
Okay.
And I thought it was amazing.
Okay. Like 4,000 Weeks, and then Die with Zero?
I have not read Die with Zero.
Okay. So I kept hearing people talk about those two books in particular. And finally, because I was like, I think I got the point. I don't need to read it. And then finally I was like, you know what? I will read the books. And they work really well together. Yeah. And like many books, like you're not going to agree with everything. However, if you get like one or two good things that reframe how you thought about something, it's worth it. So I would say check out Die with Zero. There's probably going to be chunks of it. You're like, I don't agree with that. Totally cool. But yeah, I would check that one out.
Great.
All right. And what about you? Do you have a rec for me?
Since you've mentioned an interest in biography and memoir, it's a doorstop, to be sure, and more of a doorstop if you read the other books around it. But I would probably recommend Master of the Senate by Robert Caro, which is a description of LBJ's time as a senator and as his time as Senate Majority Leader. I think it's very interesting. First, LBJ was a very fascinating, complicated, complex individual. So I think just that part is interesting. And there's also, I think, a very good description of the Senate as an institution that I found personally very interesting, not from a partisan lens, but just as an institutional lens. The other books that he wrote on LBJ I also think are very interesting, but I found Master of the Senate was my favorite one.
Okay, good recommendation.
But it's like 750 pages. Like, it's really long.
Okay. Maybe an audiobook.
Maybe.
We'll check that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll link up to a couple of the books that we mentioned here. Hopefully y'all found that entertaining. I am experimenting with some shorter episodes, although it's so fun to talk that sometimes they're longer than what I expected. And no sponsor on this one. However, if you want to check out the Buy Me a Coffee page, you potentially can support the show. You can be a monthly member where you get a little bit more. I'm trying to do a better job sending out some previews and stuff, little sneak peeks for episodes that are coming out, a few weeks ahead of time, and you can check it out. The show will always be free, but I'm experimenting with how to bring in some money to pay for the lights and gear and stickers and other kind of stuff like that. But thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks. It's fun.
And keep reading out there. JT, you're a runner. What are you training for? What's going on in your running life right now?
Yeah, I haven't done that many events over the last several years. I'll blame kids. It's always a convenient excuse for not doing things. But I started to get into a few more things. I did the 5K at Shoes and Brews last year, and then I'm hoping to do the Colorado Marathon that's in Fort Collins on May the 4th.
Nice.
So I'm hoping it won't be me, but I'm hoping someone does the whole marathon in like a Chewbacca or a Darth Vader costume, just because it's May the 4th.
I thought you were going to do your Leia costume with the head bun thing.
Not for this race. Okay. Maybe another time. You have, I know, done some running. Are there like any events? I know you don't run as much anymore, but do you still have any interest in some of these organized events, whether it's running races or duathlons, or I know like amateur weightlifting? Like, is there any of that you're kind of interested in? Or
technically, I would be interested in either trail runs or maybe I won't do this, I don't think, in the near term. I have an interest in ultra marathons, even though I've only done halves, but trail running, essentially. That said, I actually don't run at all anymore. I kept having like an Achilles issue, similar to our buddy Jake. And I was just like, I'm spending way more time trying to do stuff to be able to run than I'm actually running.
Sure.
And I was like, I've been running for like 20 years pretty consistently at the time. So I was like, I think I may like hang up the shoes for now. And I was thinking, it's kind of rough on your body, or it can be, depending on your body and how hard you run and like the surface and all these other things. And I was like, it would be cool to be able to run when I am older. And I'm pretty sure if I keep running for the next 30 years on top of the 20 I already did, like probably not going to be able to do that. So I hung up the shoes and I do not run anymore. So not lazy. I do other like cardio type stuff, but not nearly as much. This is a little sad because I do love running. So one thing that's interesting is you're pretty fast for your age, right?
I'm decently fast. It's hard to say. I think I'm probably in like the top third or top quartile for my age group. But then I look at people like our friend Jake, who is a freak of nature and ridiculously fast, despite running not really a whole lot. for how fast he is. And then I just feel really slow. So
He's a jerk. Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's younger than us, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my excuse.
sure. Yeah.
No, he's
Yeah, no,
fast.
I'll go
he
for
works
that.
hard. He runs.
Yeah.
I mean, he does some stuff.
He qualified for Boston on his first marathon. So it's quite impressive.
Yeah. It's something else. But yeah, you're faster than you used to be. So I was making a light of your age or whatever, but like you're in some of the best shape of your life probably, right?
It's pretty good right now. Actually, I did a bunch of marathons in like my late 20s, kind of early 30s. I think I ran 8 or 9 marathons then. And there were probably at some points then that I was in better shape than I am now and faster. But maybe if you look at like age adjusted, then there's a good chance I'm kind of in similar shape now. I ran a lot of miles last year, which I'm really excited about because I went through a number of years where I was hurt a lot. So just getting that consistency in has been nice. I have been trying to focus more, like you said, on being able to run 20 years from now than being able to like perform my best now. But man, that's hard to do sometimes. It's so tempting for me to want to just go out and like try to kill it. And then I usually just end up getting hurt. So I'm trying to be smarter and wiser in my master's running career than I was when I was younger, but we'll see how it goes.
It's all injury management, really.
Yeah.